1903, the dawn of aviation. But years earlier, in Mumbai, a different pioneer reached for the sky.
You know, when we think about the first flight, one image comes to mind, right? December 17, 1903. Kitty Hawk, the Wright brothers. It's in every history book. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the first powered flight actually happened 8 years earlier on a crowded beach in Mumbai? Today, we're diving into the incredible, almost unbelievable story of the Maharshi and the man who might just have beaten the Wright brothers to the sky.
Just picture this for a moment. The year is 1895, Chowpatty Beach. A crowd is gathered, not for a festival, but to watch a strange, unmanned craft attempt to take flight. This isn't just a fun little story. I mean, if it's true, it completely rewrites the history of aviation as we know it.
All right, so who was the man at the center of all this? His name was Shivkar Bapuji Talpade. He was a scholar, an inventor, and the mind behind an aircraft he called the Maharshi. But here's the kicker. He wasn't looking at modern engineering diagrams. Nope. His instruction manual was, well, it was thousands of years old.
And you really have to appreciate the context here. This wasn't just some guy tinkering in a shed. This was a brilliant scholar, totally fluent in Sanskrit, who genuinely believed that he had found the secrets to a lost science, the science of flight, hidden in ancient texts. He was basically challenging the entire Western narrative of who gets to be a pioneer.
So you're probably wondering, where on earth did he get these radical ideas from? Well, he got them from what he saw as the ultimate blueprint for aviation, a deeply mysterious and controversial ancient text called the Vaimanika Shastra.
Now, the Vaimanika Shastra is a truly wild document. It's credited to the ancient sage Maharshi Bharadwaj, and it claims to be a complete how-to guide on building and flying things called vimanas, essentially ancient flying machines. For Talpade, this wasn't some fantasy or mythology. To him, it was a physics textbook.
And the stuff in this text is, well, it's mind-blowing. We're not just talking about getting a machine off the ground. The book supposedly details 32 secrets of a pilot. Things that sound like they're straight out of a Marvel movie, like making a craft invisible or even paralyzing enemy aircraft. And right alongside all that, you have really practical sounding details about special metal alloys and even what a pilot should wear and eat. After spending years poring over these scriptures, Talpade honed in on one specific idea that he believed was the key to it all. He was convinced that the Vedas described a revolutionary propulsion system, a kind of engine that ran on mercury and solar power, something we might today call a Mercury Ion Engine. So, armed with this ancient wisdom, he built his machine. And he gave it this beautiful, almost poetic name, Maharshi, which means friend of the wind. So, let's get to it. What do the stories say actually happened on that day back in 1895? First off, forget what you think an airplane looks like. The accounts that we have described the Maharshi as something totally different. It was unmanned, shaped like a cylinder, and built mostly out of bamboo. It sounds simple, right? But the idea behind it was anything but. So, how was this bamboo cylinder supposed to fly? Well, the theory behind his Mercury engine is pretty ingenious. The idea goes like this. You put liquid mercury inside the craft. The heat from the sun then triggers a chemical reaction. This reaction supposedly produces hydrogen gas. And since hydrogen is way lighter than air, bingo, the craft gets the lift it needs to go up.
And this is the most incredible part of the whole story. The legend says the Maharshi didn't just, hop a few feet into the air. No, it is said to have soared to an altitude of 1,500 feet. And it stayed up there for several minutes before it finally came down. I mean, if that really happened, it's just a staggering achievement.
Which, of course, brings us to the big, obvious question. I know you're thinking it. If an Indian inventor pulled this off 8 full years before the Wright brothers, why is he a barely known name instead of a global icon? Why isn't this in every single history book? Well, as you can imagine, the answer is really complicated. This is where the story gets murky, and we find ourselves in the middle of a huge historical debate. It's a clash, really, pitting claims of patriotism and colonial suppression against some very serious scientific skepticism. So let's break it down. On one side, you have the proponents.
They argue that under British colonial rule, a massive Indian scientific breakthrough would have been a huge threat to the narrative of Western superiority, and so it was deliberately buried. They point to the fact that Talpades struggled for funding and that his notes mysteriously disappeared. But then, on the other side, you have the skeptics, and they come with hard questions. First, there's not a single newspaper report from 1895 that mentions this public flight, and then there's the science. In 1974, the Indian Institute of Science studied the designs from the Vaimanika Shastra and basically called them aerodynamically impossible. They said the designs just wouldn't fly, and that Mercury engine of his couldn't have possibly generated enough thrust for lift. So, with such a heated debate and so little concrete proof, you have to ask, why are we still so fascinated by this story? Why does the legend of Talpade and his Marutsaka refuse to die? Well, I think it's because this story is about so much more than just whether a machine flew or not. It's about the legacy he left behind. You see, it doesn't really matter in the end if the Marutsaka reached 1,500 feet or if it never left the ground. Talpade's attempt is what's so important. It symbolizes this incredible bridge between India's vast ancient heritage of knowledge and our modern scientific drive to discover. He was brave enough to believe that the secrets of the future could be found in the wisdom of the past. And we absolutely cannot forget the time he was living in. For an Indian, under British rule, to even try to pull off such a world-changing experiment, that was a profoundly political act. It's been called a feat of extraordinary patriotism, and that's exactly what it was. It was an act of intellectual defiance. Shivkar Bapuji Talpade passed away in 1916. And yes, for the most part, the wider world has forgotten him. But in India, his legend carries on. He's remembered by this wonderful nickname, Hawazada, the man of the air. It just perfectly captures his incredible spirit, doesn't it? So that's where we're left. Who was Shivkar Bapuji Talpade? Was he a true genius, an Indian Da Vinci, whose groundbreaking work was lost to history? Was he a passionate dreamer, inspired by ancient myths to literally reach for the stars? Or maybe, just maybe, the truth is somewhere in between. The story is not finished, and it leaves you wondering, what else might be out there, just waiting to be rediscovered? I'd love to know. What do you believe?
From the whispers of ancient myths to the roar of modern innovation, India continues its journey to the stars.